The transformation of world architecture through stimulus transmission, focusing on Sim Joon's book, A History of World Architecture. Introduction. The origins of human architecture and the mechanism of stimulus propagation. The history of humanity is not merely a record of struggles for survival, but a manifestation of the architectural will to assign meaning to space and preserve social values through that space. Since the discovery of the world's first stone tower near Aleppo in northern Syria around 10,650 BC, until the founding of Göbekli in the year 2333 BC, first year of the Dangun calendar, approximately 8,000 years have passed, during which world architecture has undergone rapid changes through intercontinental interactions and stimulus diffusion, beyond isolated development. Stimulus diffusion refers to the phenomenon where specific architectural forms from a particular culture are not simply replicated, but rather the underlying ideas or engineering principles are transmitted, allowing the receiving group to create new outcomes tailored to their environment and needs. The Eurasian continent, based on its geographical advantage of stretching long in the east-west direction, has formed a great web where climate and vegetation share similarities, and technology and ideas spread like waves. In contrast, the American continent has followed a path of isolated laboratories, showing a pattern of convergent evolution, where each civilization reaches similar architectural solutions due to geographical isolation along the north-south axis. This study examines how architecture in various regions, starting from the dawn of Tel Qaramel, including Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus, Europe, Central Asia, Southeast Asia, East Asia, and the Korean Peninsula, has influenced and transformed each other, and what results this technological trajectory has yielded. 1. The Near East and Mesopotamia. Transition from temple cities to imperial architecture. 1.1. Tel Qaramel and Göbekli Tepe. The birth of monumentalism. The first chapter of human architecture began before the advent of agriculture, rooted in the religious aspirations of hunter-gatherer societies. The 5 circular stone towers of Tel Qaramel, constructed around 10,650 BC, demonstrate that humanity was already capable of organizing large-scale labor and creating communal symbols even before establishing the technological foundations of settled life. These towers have sturdy walls that are 2 meters thick, and the internal hearth and benches suggest that this place was not just a defensive facility, but a site for gatherings and rituals. This architectural tradition of ritual priority reached its peak around 9,600 BC at Göbekli Tepe in Anatolia. The intricate reliefs of wild animals carved on the massive T-shaped stone pillars are the result of humanity's first intellectual struggle to perceive nature and project its order into space. The circular structure discovered at Göbekli Tepe later led to the walls and towers of Jericho, c. 8,300 BC, and the dense housing of Çatalhöyük, c. 7,500 BC, forming the foundation of Near Eastern architecture. 1.2. The Akkadian Empire and the language of the empire around 2333 BC. Around 2333 BC, a short period of 1 year, Mesopotamia was undergoing strong centralization under the rule of King Sargon of the Akkadian Empire, circa 2334-2279 BC. The most significant feature of architecture during this period is the paradigm shift from the temple-centric, ziggurat-centric of the Sumerian era to the palace-centric model. Akkadian architects perfected the technique of constructing moisture-resistant and sturdy structures by combining fired bricks with natural asphalt, known as bitumen. In fortified palace ruins like Tel Brak, repetitive niches and buttress structures appear, which not only provide structural reinforcement, but also mark the beginning of an imperial decorative language that visually maximizes the authority of the king through contrasts of light and shadow. This means that architecture has come to function as a visual medium for governance, beyond just a simple physical space. 2. Egypt. The evolution of stone engineering and ritual machinery towards eternity. 2.1. The technological trajectory from mastabas to pyramids. Egyptian architecture was a history of engineering challenges aimed at realizing the ideology of the deification of pharaohs and eternal life in the afterworld. Starting from the mastaba, a bench-shaped mud brick tomb of the early dynasties, a revolutionary transition to stone architecture occurred through the step pyramid of Djoser by Imhotep, c. 2670 BC. After a series of trials and errors at Snefru's Bent Pyramid and Red Pyramid, geometric completeness was achieved around 2580 BC at the Great Pyramid of Giza. 2.2. architectural maturity of the 5th and 6th dynasties, and the pyramid texts around 2333 BC. By the end of the 5th dynasty during the reign of King Unas and the beginning of the 6th dynasty during the reign of King Teti, the focus of architecture shifted from the physical scale to inner depth and ritual function. Although the Unas pyramid and the Teti pyramid are smaller in scale compared to earlier periods, they were the first to begin carving pyramid texts on the walls of the inner chamber. This signifies that the pyramid evolved from being a simple tomb to a ritual machine that launches the pharaoh's soul into the sky. This innovation, where architecture and writing combine to make the space itself part of a spell, shows the high symbolic peak reached by Egyptian architecture. Additionally, the necropolis of this period completed a highly planned structure of the city of the dead, with bureaucrats arranged hierarchically around the king. 3. Indus civilization, standardized order and invisible engineering. 3.1. Urban order of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, c. 2600–1900 BC. Around 2333 BC, the Indus River Basin was experiencing the peak of the Harappan civilization. The essence of Indus architecture lies in standardization and publicness. While Egypt and Mesopotamia were obsessed with massive royal tombs and temples, the Indus people designed the entire city as one massive system. The urban structure adopted a grid layout, grid-iron plan, characterized by linear road networks extending north-south and east-west, suggesting a strong administrative control by the central government. In particular, the bricks discovered throughout the Harappa region were produced while maintaining a sophisticated ratio of 124, making it one of the earliest examples of large-scale industrial standardization in human history. 3.2. The science of hydraulic architecture and sanitation. The Indus civilization achieved remarkable success in the invisible architecture of its water supply and drainage systems. The Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro realized a perfect waterproof structure by stacking finely baked bricks and natural bitumen in layers. Each household was equipped with private bathrooms and toilets, and wastewater was discharged outside the city through brick-covered sewer pipes installed beneath the road. This architecture philosophy, centered on public health, is a product of their worldview that prioritized religious purity combined with engineering technology. 4. Europe. The peak of megalithic culture and climate-adaptive housing technology. 4.1. Malta and Ireland. The spread and differentiation of megalithic techniques. European architecture developed around the megalithic culture that dealt with massive stones throughout the Neolithic period. Around 3600 BC, the Gigantea Temple in Malta challenged the engineering limits of early megalithic architecture through its cloverleaf-shaped floor plan and the use of megaliths weighing over 50 tons. Around 3200 BC, the precision of megalithic architecture at Newgrange in Ireland was combined with astronomical knowledge. The corridor-style tomb here is designed so that the sunlight on the winter solstice morning shines precisely on the altar of the inner reality after passing through a 19-meter-long corridor. In particular, the corbelled vault technique, which stacks stones slightly overlapping inward to efficiently distribute the weight of the roof, later spread throughout the Eurasian continent and became a universal architectural vocabulary found in ancient Goguryeo tomb architecture and Mediterranean tholos tombs. 4.2. Stonehenge and Skara Brae, around 2333 BC. Around 2333 BC, Stonehenge in southern England was entering its third phase of construction, completing a massive circular structure made of sarsen stones. Stonehenge was not just a simple tomb, it was a precise cosmic calendar linked to the sunrise on the summer solstice and served as a social focal point that united the community's efforts. At the same time, Skara Brae in northern Scotland showcases the essence of vernacular architecture optimized for the harsh climate. In environments where wood is scarce, they utilize nearby garbage heaps, midden, as insulation, and carved stones to create beds, shelves, and drainage systems integrated with their homes. This is an example of how environmental determinism compels humanity to find unique architectural solutions. 5. Central Asia and Southeast Asia. The catalyst of technology and the grammar of climate. 5.1. The network of Sintashta and the steppes, circa 2300 BC. Around 2333 BC, the Sintashta culture was emerging in the steppe regions of Kazakhstan and southern Russia in Central Asia. They built circular fortified settlements, equipped with earthen walls reinforced with wood and defensive ditches, which were not just simple residences, but industrial fortresses, where large-scale copper mining and metallurgy took place. The architecture and metallurgy of Sintashta acted as a powerful technological catalyst that spread to Eastern Eurasia through the Seymer-Turbino phenomenon. The tank technology and sophisticated bronze casting techniques they developed became ideological and technological stimuli that led to the construction of the prestige items of the elite of Gojoseon on the Korean peninsula, such as the bifacial bronze swords and massive stone monuments, as they moved eastward along the steppe route. 5.2. Systematization of Banqiang and stilt houses in Southeast Asia. The Banqiang culture in northeastern Thailand had already established an elaborate rice farming and stilt house architectural system around 2300 BC. This architectural style, which raised the floor high to survive the hot and humid tropical climate, floods, and pests, was a logical consequence of wooden furniture-style structures. The grammar of refined architecture completed in Banqiang later spread throughout the entire Pacific Rim rice farming cultural sphere. This technological stimulus passed through the Hemudu culture in the Yangtze River Basin, leading to the high granaries of Goguryeo in the Korean peninsula, known as Bugyong, and the grain storage styles in Japan, forming an important lineage of residential and storage facilities in East Asia. 6. East Asia, China. The emergence of pluralistic civilizations and the fortifications of early states. 6.1. The Hongshan culture and the tradition of dolmens in the Liao River Basin, c. 4700–2900 BC. The Hongshan culture in the Liao River Basin, which played a significant role in East Asian architecture, is the origin of the tradition of building tombs with piled stones, known as Juksokchong. The goddess temple at the new Huliang site and the massive seven-tiered stone tomb exhibit monumental characteristics similar to pyramids, showcasing the uniqueness of northern stone architecture that is distinctly different from the earthen architecture of the Yellow River Basin during the same period. This technique of stone tomb construction became the technical foundation for dolmens and early stone tomb architecture in the Korean peninsula, passing through the Liaodong region. 6.2. The urban revolution of the Longshan period and the Tianyuan region around 2333 BC. Around 2333 BC, the Longshan culture, Longshan Wenhua, which thrived in the middle and lower reaches of the Yellow River, became a direct background for the formation of early Chinese states. The key innovation in architecture during this period was the systematization of the Panchu, hangtu construction method. This technique, which involves creating a frame with wooden boards and layering and compacting earth, became the enduring standard for Chinese fortress architecture from the Great Wall to the Forbidden City. The Taoxi site in Shaanxi province, covering an area of about 2.8 million square meters, surprised the world with the discovery of a stone astronomical observatory within its walls. This is a typical example of political architecture that shows how rulers acquired divine authority by monopolizing astronomical knowledge. Additionally, at the Shimao site in northern Shaanxi province, a solid stone wall with a barbican and bastion was discovered, eloquently indicating that East Asia had already entered a highly advanced military engineering era around 2333 BC. 7. The Korean Peninsula. The founding of Gojoseon and the paradigm shift in residential architecture. 7.1. The subdivision of living spaces and the early transition to above-ground housing. Around 2333 BC, which was a short-term period of 1 year, the Korean peninsula was experiencing a major transition from the Neolithic painted pottery era to the Bronze Age unpainted pottery era. The most prominent architectural change is the evolution of the dwelling. While the previous circular dwellings were undifferentiated single spaces, from this period onward, rectangular square floor plans became mainstream, and internal spaces began to be divided by function. An important technological change is the location of the furnace noji. The furnace, which used to be in the center, has been moved to one wall or multiple units have been installed, which is an intellectual product aimed at maximizing the efficiency of cooking and heating. The use of early foundation stones, chosok, and the installation of drainage ditches, byokgu, seen in the Garakdong and Hunamri house sites, were a precursor to the gradual elevation of houses above ground, reflecting the permanence of settled life and a family-centered social structure. 7.2. The declaration of dolmens and megaliths. Localization of stimulus propagation. The most powerful symbol supporting the founding of Gojoseon archaeologically is the emergence of the giant stone monument known as Goindol Dolmen. The megalithic culture of the Korean peninsula is a representative case of stimulus diffusion, where the concept of megaliths from the Atlantic coast or the Near East was transmitted in the form of ideas through the network of the Eurasian steppe. The people of the Korean peninsula embraced the abstract stimulus of commemorating death with a giant stone, combining it with the regional characteristics rich in granite and the unique ideology of ancestor worship to create an original style. The table-style dolmens in the north proclaimed the monumental nature of their furniture-style structure, while the massive mass of the base-style dolmens in the south declared the authority and territorial rights of the chieftains. In particular, the high-density dolmen clusters in the Gochang and Hwasun regions serve as architectural evidence of social cohesion and resource mobilization that is hard to find anywhere else in the world. 8. America. Parallel evolution of Qaral soup and an isolated laboratory. 8.1. Qaral. The first urban civilization in America, c. 1800 BC. While Eurasia developed architecture through war and exchange, the Qaral Supe civilization in Peru forged its own path within an isolated laboratory. Around 2333 BC, Qaral was already a highly planned city centered around 6 massive pyramids and sunken circular plazas. The most revolutionary feature of Qaral's architecture is that it is architecture of peace. Among numerous relics, no city walls, fortifications, or weapon artifacts have been found, which indicates that this society was integrated through trade in cotton and shellfish, rather than through violence, and through communal ritual practices. Architecture was not a tool of oppression, but a manifestation of cooperation. 8.2. The independent invention of shikra and seismic engineering. The Qaral people invented the shikra technique to maintain massive structures in the earthquake-prone Andes region. This method involves filling bags made of plant fibers with stones and placing them between the foundation and walls of the pyramid, perfectly aligning with the modern principle of base isolation, which disperses the vibrational energy of earthquakes through the subtle frictional movement of the stones. Without technological exchanges with the outside, they had reached cutting-edge engineering solutions that responded to the environment on their own. Analysis and reflection. The world of 2333 BC, shaped by the transmission of stimuli. The vast web, Eurasia, versus the isolated laboratory, America. The key principle that runs through the history of world architecture before 2333 BC is that geographical connectivity determined the speed and acceleration of civilization's development. The Eurasian continent had similar climates and ecosystems along the east-west axis, which allowed architectural achievements from one region, e.g. Mesopotamian bricks, Irish corbelled ceilings, to provide ideological stimulation to other regions, e.g. Egyptian mastaba wall niches, Goguryeo tomb ceilings, facilitating a vibrant cross-pollination of technologies. In contrast, America experienced a significantly slower pace of exchange due to geographical barriers in the north-south direction and the absence of large livestock. Nevertheless, the appearance of the pyramids and sewage systems in Qaral, in forms similar to those in Egypt or the Indus, proves the principle of convergent evolution, which suggests that human cognitive structures and social needs give rise to universal architectural solutions under certain conditions. Stimulus propagation and the creative hybrid of Korean architecture. The early architecture of the Korean peninsula, particularly the dolmens and housing innovations from the founding period of Gojoseon, are exemplary cases of stimulus propagation. The stimulus of metallurgy in Central Asia was localized through a modular design known as the wavy bronze sword, and the monumental ideas from Western Europe and the North were reimagined into a dolmen culture with the highest density in the world, thanks to the abundant granite of the Korean peninsula. This is not mere imitation, but a process of creative hybridity, where external stimuli are actively translated into one's own cultural grammar. The birth of the state of Gojoseon was a physical proclamation that the energy of these architectural and technological transformations had reached a critical point. Conclusion. In 2333 BC, the completion of human civilization as seen through architecture. The journey that began with the humble stone tower of Tel Qaramel around 10,650 BC reached a stage around 2333 BC, where human civilization achieved a monumental order across the globe in its own way. Egypt built spiritual spaces through texts. Mesopotamia inscribed the grandeur of empires on baked bricks, and the Indus realized a standardized urban order. Additionally, Qaral in the Americas completed a model of a city based on peace and coexistence, expanding the possibilities of humanity. In the midst of this immense historical flow, the founding period of Gojoseon on the Korean peninsula was a significant turning point where the bronze technology of the Eurasian steppes, the agricultural culture of Northeast Asia, and the stone traditions of the north came together as one. The architecture of the world before 2333 BC was not isolated fragments, but rather a vast fabric intricately woven together by an invisible network known as stimulus propagation. The earthen ramparts, wooden structures, and the logic of megalithic monuments established during this period became the architectural DNA of all great civilizations that humanity would later build. And our architecture also heralded a magnificent beginning, blooming its own uniqueness on this universal historical foundation.